The perspective for this conference is Goal 17 primarily. We've been speaking about climate change, equality, gender equality, and also sustainable cities and partnerships and that work. If I'd like to start with which new insights have you gotten today? If I look at you, Hannah, you have a microphone next to you. Listening to the other speakers, listening to the panel talk, and also talking during breaks and lunch.
A new insight, I suppose, is probably mostly related to different people's challenges. I think with every new conversation, with every new dialogue that we have across sectors and across borders, we realize, okay, well, here I find a new challenge that I can contribute to and can solve. And I think perspectives are different, backgrounds are different, and approaches need to be different and adaptable. So finding ways that are inclusive and can be applicable to those different kind of challenges, that would probably be my insight for today so far.
Thank you. How about Fredrik?
Well, I would say the growing importance of the private sector. A lot of the companies here present, when they are engaged, when they are part of the sustainability effort, I think we can really make a difference.
Thank you. Jakob?
Yeah, I think that it's obviously it's about collaboration, and I'm very optimistic more than anything. That's my takeaway, I think, despite some of the and I think it's actually wonderful that the challenges we have. I mean, my maybe specific point of view is that it's all about logic. It's all about how we solve these things, and there's not, logic doesn't necessarily mean that there's a right and a wrong, but we gotta figure out a way that it works, and I think that's something it's not about politics, and it's not about any different objectives from the private sector or the public sector. We're all trying to solve the same problems, and what all sectors have in common is that they're trying to make life better for people. That's, if you have a company that doesn't have that as a goal, then you're not going to survive. And that's really what we're talking about, creating a better world.
Thank you. Sven, you joined in a bit late with we didn't have a keynote speak, but you've been able to participate all day and listen to the speakers and also participate in the other panel discussion. What new insights have you gotten?
Now, that's a lot of enthusiasm, and what is interesting, it's very, very complex issues, and they cannot be solved without collaboration over the globe. They cannot be solved without collaboration between businesses and legislators, etc. So that's a takeaway, that there's a lot of enthusiasm, and I think a growing awareness that we have to work together. It's not the industry that's a big bad wolf coming. We can actually, with some solutions, help and be a part of the solution. And that growing awareness was very refreshing for me.
Thank you, Sven. Thank you. Very often when I lecture and talk about sustainability, people come up to me and say, well, there are so much bad things going on in other parts of the world. You addressed this, Fredrik. On the other hand, and I'm turning to you again, what is the importance of a country like Sweden being an engine in this transition? What is the importance of Swedish companies really sort of being on the cutting edge of this transition? How important is that?
Well, the world needs good examples. And Sweden is actually ranked very high when this is viewed from international angles, that we have been able to combine growth in our economy with lowering of our greenhouse gas emissions. And that's actually the answer that the world needs. And I think a lot of our entrepreneurs, a lot of the business solutions that we have here present today and in Sweden, we are an export-oriented economy. The world needs this. They need our knowledge. They need how to create sustainable cities, how to bring things together. And in that sense, we have a lot of work to do together with others, because everyone wants to have a better climate situation, better sustainability, but they very often lack the knowledge and how to do it. So in that sense, Sweden is needed. And of course, we should be humble, saying that we also have things left to do, but we're in the midst of this transition and we have come quite far.
Thank you, Sven. You're a leader of a global company. How do you look on your role as a forerunner in this field of? In your case, it's technology to keep our air clean.
Yeah, we try to keep innovation, coming with new solutions, but we need also the incentive that the politician can help us with, that not giving subsidies, but making it less profitable to destroy our resources, our natural resources, because it is a fact. It's cheaper not to clean the air. It is cheaper not to clean the water. So there, again, collaboration. And our ambition here, obviously, is to come up with the good technologies, the solutions. And we try to sell them, we try to make money out of them, we try to be efficient, and we also try to make business cases around it, energy saving and so on. So it's a business case for our counterpart, our customers.
Thank you. Jakob, in your company, the new division, you dig deep into the heart of the company and sort of laser cut through the work they do with sustainability and try to sort of come up with a solid way of communicating. But before doing that, you really have to sort of look at what's going on. And what could you tell us what you learned from this process? What is the sort of the normal ailment that companies have in terms of being really transparent and pushing forward in sustainability?
So we're trying to help with figuring out systems that make sense, trying to figure out which areas we should lift, and then, of course, as I mentioned before, we're very interested in building cultures, because that's sort of the heart and soul of what you're doing. So I think you have to look internally first and get that going, and that's something that we've learned. So we've kind of gotten deeper into the issues by coming just from like, let's make some cool communication about this.
So I assume in this process there is a lot of learning going on, and maybe also changes of direction in companies. When they try to communicate something that's not really generally true for them, they really need to shift their purpose.
Yeah, I think there is an awakening, and I think it's an awakening that we're all very excited about, because companies are about innovation, and that's how companies survive, and that is about doing things better and differently, and this is the biggest opportunity that we've ever had. And talk about being heroes, right?
It's wonderful. Speaking of heroes, Hanna, you meet and interact with a lot of young people. What would you say is the result of the adult work acting on specifically climate change, as opposed to not acting on climate change? What profound change does that do to the younger generation?
I mean, if we don't act, then we're not leaving a planet for anyone to live on. We're creating an environment or a future for future generations that is not going to be livable.
But I think on a more profound sort of spiritual and mental level, what does it do to their faith in the process?
I think, we do see climate anxiety. I think klimatångest in Swedish, the climate anxiety that you see, where people are worried, they're genuinely worried about the future of the planet and what kind of future that can lead to them. I think we haven't talked so much about it today, but the increase of mental health issues amongst young people related to depression and a kind of crisis foreboding feeling is very high. And in the different movements and in the different groups that I work with, that there is that fear of what if we ruin the planet. But that's also, again, one of those stories. We need to also see that this fear also drives a lot of passion. It drives a lot of activism. It drives a lot of activity. And it is our responsibility to harness that passion, that enthusiasm, that activity from those young people around the globe that want to make a difference, that want to participate, that want to partake, that want to have an opportunity. But this doesn't work unless we cooperate and work together. We need to harness that passion in that way. And I think there is this notion of youth are the leaders of tomorrow. I hate that sentence with a passion. It's probably one of the few things that I hate with a passion. Because these young people are not leaders of tomorrow. They are very much leaders of today. They are very much leaders of maybe our tomorrow or our common future. But they are right now leading themselves and their peers in a journey and a challenge towards the future. But yeah, keep them in. Don't count them out. Count them in. And make it inclusive, make it progress to then tackle all those challenges that otherwise would lie ahead.
Thank you, Hannah. If you were in an organization, let's say Nederman, and you feel that you need perspective of youth, you need to have some of that rocket fuel that the young generation can provide, how would you sort of...
I mean, there is a multitude of ways. I think examples that we have seen that work really well is by including young people as an expert group, as a reference group into steering committees. And not just as the token young person. Oh, no, you're the young person. Please have an opinion. No. If you want to do it right. Meaning that if they tell you, well, our expert opinion on these topics, and they can be very tricky topics, then take them seriously. Meet them 3 months later as you would meet your board and show your results. That's where you can measure progress and that impact, and you also give those young people, or just call them people, these individuals, the feeling that they have contributed. And this is what I mean by take action and mean it. There are a multitude of ways of including young people. This is just one example. But treat them as the experts of the future that they are. They are also your future workforce. So in the transition of redefining your purpose and seeing that young people don't buy bullshit communication. They want the real deal. If this is the kind of company you are, these are your values, this is what you work with, then I'm happy to work with you because that corresponds to my idea, my ideals, and the way I want to work in the future. You've heard these examples before, Generation X, Y, Z, etc. Treat them as people, treat them as experts, and give them the credit that they're due. Do not fall in the trap of tokenistic approaches where you have, that young person, now you're a young person, you're allowed to have an opinion. Include them in the process, just as you would include anybody else that you respect, and treat them with that dignity.
Wow. Sven, how does that sound? How does that sound? Overwhelming, or is it something you would, consider having young people as advisor? Maybe you have already in your
we
structure.
do not, but we have an increase in cooperation with universities, and we have an obligation to make room for a student during that period, because there's an increasing difficulty for them to get places. And we are not good enough, but we are a small organization here, so we try as good as we can. And I think that is, but it was overwhelming enthusiastic. So we will bring that along, because they have a lot of different ideas. We all were young once upon a time, and I've been a young manager, but that's grown away over time. So now I'm only a manager. So, but I think it's very important because they have different ideas, and I have a sounding board at home with one daughter, one son, and one sort of boyfriend to my daughter, who are all engineering studies. So it's sort of my sounding board, and we disagree quite a lot.
Good.
And we have the diplomat that is mommy in the family.
Thank you, Sven. On the note of passion, Jakob, we've talked on what happened to you profoundly when you started working with the SDGs, the global goals, how that sort of shifted things in how you wanted to work. how can we evoke and sort of waken? I mean, most people that sit in here have that fire in the belly already to want to change, but not all people have that drive to be part of the transition. How do we light it? It was lit in you, obviously.
There's like a fundamental realization when you're kind of twisting one thing around that people are saying. People are saying like, "Oh, we're ruining the planet." Right? Well, the planet doesn't care. We have to remember that. The planet really doesn't care about us. We're not ruining, like the planet is going to be here, and when we're gone, some other amazing creatures are going to be there. It's just like, this is our home, this is our house that we're just like tearing down and ruining. And I think that picture of what's happening, the fact that we're small, we're just on this planet, it doesn't care about us. Do we want to have a good time here or not? I think that's a message that people need, because it's not like, oh, this is boring, they're caring about all of this stuff, but I just want to have fun. No, it's like, we're not helping the planet, we're just helping us. So I think that's one thing. And then I get over my sense of like, I'm so small, what can I do? By, because Fredrik talked a lot about that there's so many people, and the impact of these many people is amazing. But we have to remember that it works the other way around, that whatever savings you're doing in your life, whatever plane trip you're not taking, because if enough people don't take the plane, then they actually don't fly that many planes. So that's the other part of that. But for me, it's just very simple things, and you have to start to think about it. And once you start to think about it, and it might be plastic straws, whatever it is you start to think about, you have to, like, your head starts spinning in different ways.
So you need something to sort of open the door into your awareness, and then once you're inside, it's easier.
And I've been like the world's best consumer, and I'm still a pretty good consumer. So for me, it's a transition. I really have to look at the things. All of a sudden, like, okay, I have to stop buying clothes now because I really don't need anymore. So I'm going to be wearing this next year if I'm here.
Okay. Any reflections on the topic? Fredrik, you're around the world a lot, and you meet people in different situations, obviously, that... just thinking back on what the Chinese guy and the delegation that said, no, we cannot accept this, no, we cannot accept this. You must be meeting a lot of people that are very disillusioned and not sort of on board, or do you not?
First of all, it's been able for me to see the world through flying. I hope that we will not come to a world where Europeans stop traveling to other parts of the world, because we actually need to be there to have global contact, even though it has an impact, and I hope that we can reduce that. Do I find a lot of distressed people? No, I would say that in many parts of the world, people are feeling better off. We have now a generation in China saying, we are better off than our parents. Finally coming out of poverty. You actually see this partly in Africa, not everywhere. So it's the gloomy feeling is more concentrated to Europe and part of the United States, where you have a feeling of a shrinking middle class pushed back by something, some new kind of competition, some new rising stars, which is not us anymore. So in contrast to this gloominess, I would say I find a lot of hope around the world, a lot of hope, a lot of feeling that now it's our time. And I would like to see more of that in our part of the world as well, because I think if you're going to solve this transition, these challenges, you need hope.
Absolutely.
Because the most dangerous thing is if people are giving up. So the hope needs to be there to be able to cope and to make this transition.
Thank you. Amen to that. And in the process of keeping hope up, we need good examples, right? We need people like Helsingborg testing stuff, and companies like Nederman working globally on improving quality of life. Are we good enough in terms of spreading the word on good examples? I mean, we have Jante in our part of the world that you're not supposed to sort of promote whatever you've done that is good. Can we become better at actually sharing the good stuff we do? Reflections, any?
Absolutely. I think we should be proud of the good things that we do. I think the balance here is really difficult about, on one hand, wanting to change the narrative about saying everything is actually getting better in the Hans Rosling kind of factfulness and amazing way, but at the same time being able to acknowledge that there are challenges left. Just because things are getting better doesn't mean we're done. However, I would like to look at that as something that just because we have because we have things left to do means we have a lot of things to do, and put that passion and that drive into actually solving those problems, because we have the capacity, we have the resources, we have the people, but we need to pull that together. And I think that requires a change of the narrative, to throw off that gloominess that seems to have I don't know, developed in Europe for a reason that is beyond me, and find a way to harness that. Sorry?
Facebook, he says.
Yeah. If it's whatever it is, it's somehow we have used the internet for that was meant to open all our opportunities, to take that gloominess on us, as opposed to seeing and using it to share all those positive, impactful things that are happening around the world. I mean, part of the work that we do at thegoals.org is about creating real life, real stories from the grassroots that we're trying to share among a global audience, to show that work is happening on the ground and it's good and it has an impact and you can all get involved. And I think with that feeling, we can make that difference we need to see, and acknowledge the fact that, come on, it is actually not that bad, it's actually pretty good.
Thank you. Would anybody like to add? Otherwise, we finish on that high note. Is that good?
That's good.
Excellent. So let's just promise each other here to talk about the good stuff we do. More. We need to talk about more of the good stuff we do. And also to encourage people that do make change, right? Because then we get more energy in this transition. Excellent. Thank you very much, Sven, Hanna, Fredrik, Jakob. Thank you.